Hi, I'm Sally.
I'm Linda.
And I'm Ming.
Pour yourself a cup of tea and join us for this week's episode of Moving Oolong.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 46th episode. So, today we're going to be reacting to our secret informant about the COVID vaccine and about the process in general. So, we have some exciting breaking news to share. CNN, are you listening?
Oh my gosh.
God. So, we'll be reacting to the new info and discussing a little bit about the vaccine. I don't think any of us are vaccinated yet, but we still see people in our community getting it. So it's very, very much in our world. And before that, let's do our weekly recap. Okay, Sally, what did you do?
I did nothing. I had a day off on Monday, as we all did, for Martin Luther King Day, and I did nothing. But it was so hard going back to work the next day because I had like a meeting at 9. So then I was thinking like if I get back to Frederick by 9, then I have to wake up at like 7 a.m. And I ended up not waking up early enough to get back to Frederick to turn on the meeting. So I just joined the meeting from home. But then my home was so cold. So then I just like crawled to the bed and like with my laptop. And then I ended up like falling asleep during the meeting. But it's fine because I'm not important.
It wasn't a video meeting?
No, no. Usually, like our internal lab meetings are all video. Like most people turn on their videos. But for this one, it's with our Oxford collaborators. And they don't turn on their videos. So it's okay if I don't.
Yeah, they set the precedent.
Yeah. But besides that, another update I forgot to tell you guys is that actually I am eligible to get the COVID vaccine and I signed up for it to get it on Friday. So
Ooh,
I will be
nice.
vaccinated by next week.
Wow. Maybe we
Wow,
can
so
get your
soon.
feedback.
Yeah. I heard most people have like the mild symptoms like soreness or whatever.
Mhm.
So I'll see if I get that.
And it's because you're working in, do you think it's because you're
Yeah.
working in like a lab or specifically like a federal lab? Do you think that makes a difference?
Honestly, I'm very confused why I'm eligible for this vaccine because I have like no contact with patients or like I'm not supposed to be like high priority, but me and the other posts back in the lab both are eligible and we both signed up for Friday, but no one else in our lab is. So I think it has to do with like us being employed by NIH and the other
Mhm.
people in our lab are technically
Mhm.
employed by this private company called Leidos. So
Oh,
maybe that's why they had extras at NIH and we get to like
So,
use their extras.
that's nice. Might as well
did
take
your
it while
boss
you
let you
can.
know or?
No, they sent me an email like directly from the source, like NIH source. I don't know.
What is the
And I
source?
saw my boss
Oh.
and he was like, "What?"
Jealous.
Yeah.
He's jelly.
Well, that'll be
Yeah.
good. Maybe you can give our audience an update on how you're feeling after this episode since it's
Mhm.
so relevant.
Yep. But yeah, I haven't gotten it yet, so we'll see.
Hmm.
Ming, how was your week?
This is going to be a really quick recap. So for those of you who I know listen just for these recaps, it's going to be a short episode for your week.
Don't
But
say it like
yeah,
that.
I'm just saying. We know that people out there are listening for our recaps, but this week has been pretty boring on my end too. I had Monday off, like Sally said. Um, I baked some cookies. Well, I stayed up pretty late actually baking these cookies because I wanted them to be really good for Stefan's birthday. He really likes oatmeal
Mm.
raisin cookies, and I don't really like baking, but I decided to bake for him, and I stayed up kind of late making those. But that was like the highlight of my week, which is kind of, I guess it's not sad, but that's the
Were
highlight
they
of my
good?
week. Yeah, they were actually really good. I used a recipe from this one baker that I've been like following on Instagram, and I really wanted to try one of her recipes, and it seemed easy, but it was good. It took a long time though because there were a lot of different like steps and like sub steps. So that's what I did, and I say the other interesting thing that we did was I won't talk about this too much because it's for the podcast, but we had a nice little call with some other podcasters, and it was like the first time. I don't know. It was like the first time our identity as podcasters were like recognized, like real sees real kind of thing.
Externally, yeah.
Yeah, being acknowledged by other podcasters, but it was just kind of awkward because we're still doing everything on Zoom and we're all introverts. So, you'll hear more about that later, but it was fun. It was a nice little like something to spice up the week, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's it on my end. What about you, Linda?
Yeah, I guess I forgot that happened this week
I
since
felt like ages
I was
ago.
off today and Monday, so it felt like forever ago.
Oh, you got
Yeah.
today off? That's nice.
Yeah, we were off today too. But yeah, I didn't really do much either. I started reading a new manga, and
What's it called?
it's the main character is called Kaiju number 8. So it's like the Godzilla genre, and our main character is 32, and he's like washed up, so it's relatable. But it's still like
Oh, is that
shonen-ish.
relatable?
32-year-old Linda
It's
washed up.
relatable because usually they're like 12 and 14 and they're like
Okay.
super overpowered and stuff like that, but he's just like a normal person, like doing all these things. And it was weird because today's the inauguration, and my coworkers were texting me about it, and they're like, oh, like hallelujah, and like Trump's gone, blah blah blah, which is kind of weird. Like I didn't know we were so political. I guess I didn't want to ruin it being like Biden's just as bad or whatever. So I'm like, yes, happy inauguration, good morning, y'all, in our group chat.
Good one.
So weird. I feel like
Wait, you guys
tomorrow going back to
talk in
work.
your work group chat on your day off? I could never.
This is like the first time it's happened, so it must be like a momentous occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like our coworker who was on maternity leave came in with her baby, so that was like a bonding moment. I guess it was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my work group chat too was kind of like popping off about the inauguration. Like one of them was like, "I'm literally crying, like sobbing," and I was like, "Wow, okay." And then me and the other like woman of color on the team, we were like just liking the messages but not saying anything.
Wow. Your work lives are so different from mine. Like I literally just was doing imaging all throughout the inauguration from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. today.
No acknowledgement at all.
No acknowledgement. And we had a lab meeting during that time anyway, so.
And no one said anything?
No one cares.
The irony of working in like a federal lab versus us. Yeah. Sounds like we had a good week.
Oh, last week? Yeah. Oh. Are we ending?
What, last week? What?
Or last week, they were making like a policy brief, and they were asking me to do stuff about PDFs to send to Biden. It's like the memo. And I made the ugliest table of contents in PDF form because you can make them in Adobe Acrobat. And they sent it to Biden that day. And oh my God, I just forgot about that whole stress. But yeah, we're like supposed to be nonpartisan, but I don't know.
That's how my organization is too. We're like technically nonpartisan, but we sent a policy recommendation to the administration too. So, I feel like people could tell where we stand. I think that's just inherent in the role of nonprofits anyway.
Yeah. Wait, Ming, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it. I actually I normally work in my room, but this time I worked out in the living room and like at my kitchen, not my kitchen table, but at my dining room table. And it was really nice actually just to be in a new environment. And then, my mom was there and we were watching it together. Yeah. At some point it was just background noise while I was working, but also I took a break to watch the actual swearing in.
Must be nice. All right, y'all. By the time you're listening to this, if you're not too far into the future, you already know that we are in a pandemic situation right now. And so today we're going to be talking about the 2 COVID vaccines that were just authorized for emergency use last year, and since we heard that a lot of people are starting to get the vaccine, like I'm now eligible, and a lot of the like healthcare workers are getting vaccinated as we speak. We thought it would be a perfect timing to review and I guess discuss the review process of these vaccines and maybe talk a little bit about the pros cons about these vaccines. So we decided to bring on our special guest, who is my mom, because she has experience in reviewing viral vaccines. Usually she does influenza, but this year, because of COVID, she switched over to COVID vaccine. And she'll be sharing her expertise on this review process. So I will let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Anissa, and I'm Sally's mom. And my work is related to the review of viral vaccines. And I'm sure that you're interested to hear about some of my work related to the COVID-19 related vaccines. Basically, you may know that right now a lot of people are interested to hear about the two vaccines that are able for the US people to vaccinate, that they are from Pfizer and Moderna. And I just want to share with you some of the scientific background regarding to these vaccines. And I want to emphasize that this is from my personal experience, and it's nothing related to my job position.
Can you describe some of your daily work involved with reviewing this vaccine?
Yeah, sure. I would love to share with you. So maybe I would like to start with the reviewing process of viral vaccines in general. So for a manufacturer to get the licensure of the vaccine in the US market, they have to provide an abundant information regarding to their vaccines related to their manufacturing process, and also all kinds of animal studies to support that the vaccine is safe for the first phase clinical studies. And also they have to provide a clinical plan to describe their the design of the clinical studies to support that their vaccine is effective and also safe. So basically, they have to go through this process. And also for the clinical studies, normally they will divide into 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So the first phase basically is just they want to find out which dosage will be effective for the vaccines, and also the safety data have to be generated regarding to the dosage that they propose to be used for testing. And for the phase 2 is they will include more people. Oh, let me go back. For phase 1, normally is just using a smaller population, like around 100 people or less than 100 people. But for phase 2, once they already determined their tested dosage or effective dosage, they will include more people in the phase 2 study. Normally, I'm talking about hundreds, several hundreds. And then for the phase 2 study, they want to further confirm their suggested dosage and also to look more into their safety data. And eventually, they have to go through the phase 3 trial that they need to include a lot more people to generate that their vaccine is safe and efficacy. So, for example, like this SARS coronavirus vaccine, for the phase 3 studies, they include between about 40,000 to 50,000 people in their phase 3 studies to look for the efficacy of the vaccines, as well as they try to collect as much safety data as possible.
So, when did you hear about the first vaccines being developed?
So, if you remember, actually, for this COVID-19, I believe the news that was started in China back in November 2019. And then at that time, most of the cases were in China or in the Asian country. But by the time that more cases find in the US, most likely is starting in January, February. And then the company started not only a company and also the academia. They started doing a lot of research and also investigating into different approach of making vaccines for this SARS COVID-2. I would say is around, from what I remember, probably starting in March or April. But I'm not very sure about the exact time, but I think this will be pretty much the time frame that all the scientists as well as manufacturers start working on this virus.
Okay, so that was just Sally's mom, I guess, giving a little bit of background or introduction. And so we'll separate these recordings based off of different categories of questions. But for this first two questions, especially the first one, when she was talking about the review process, just the general outline, it kind of reminded me of, like, I have a distinct memory of sitting in one of my public health classes and learning about like each step a vaccine takes to be like approved in the US. And I remember thinking, because this was before COVID, I remember thinking, wow, why do we have to know this? Like, we're just undergrad. I think I was a junior at the time. So I was like, yeah, like I'm not going into lab work or vaccine work or anything. So this is kind of, it's nice information, but I don't think I really need to know this. And here we are, like 2 years later, listening to this, and now everyone is like trying to figure out what it means to have a vaccine come out so soon or whatever. So it goes to show that maybe a public health degree was actually a good thing to get during this time. But it's definitely like you learn it in class, but it's not until it actually happens, and then suddenly everyone's paying attention to it. It
It's like
becomes so
common
much more
knowledge.
real. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think we are all like, we're lucky, I guess, to have like a background in public health or in science where we can kind of understand, like, even if not fully, we can like understand the general thought process. Whereas, like, to explain it to my extended family, I would have to do it like step by step. And even then, they probably wouldn't totally understand or like understand why it came out so fast. Cause I know that's a common fear, I guess, about the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. I think another part I was curious about is the animal trials thing. I feel like that should be something that anti-vaxxers would be like holding on to. Like they gave COVID to animals or something. So like how did they kind of bypass that? And also the first 100 people to get the vaccine, like what was the appeal to them? Like were they like
The
just like super
appeal is
desperate
trying to
for
find a cure. Well, not really a cure, but like trying to end this pandemic as soon as possible. I mean, even in normal times, like without a pandemic, even for like influenza vaccines, all of this goes on. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's just even easier to get these subjects and the funding for it, which is why it was expedited, I think.
Yeah. Would
yeah.
either of you all be willing to be a subject for maybe not the COVID vaccine because they've already been developed, but like maybe a future vaccine or something like that? I've always been kind of curious about that because I think I watched the show once where it wasn't for a vaccine, but they were recruiting participants for a health study and they were like being paid or whatever. And this person did it out of desperation rather than just like, wow, saving the world, kind of like being a participant. But I've
Mm-hmm.
I've always like thought about it in that way of it just
Mhm.
being like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
recruit? She said 40 to 50,000 people. That's still like, that's a huge number to
Yeah.
recruit from. And then to consider that you do have to consider where people are coming from and their different age, ethnicity, and like so
Mhm.
many different things. Like, I want to be a back or like a test recruiter or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Mm,
But I think also like one of the limiting factors to why like these two vaccines were the first ones out there is because of the recruitment. Like other companies I think were behind because maybe their testing centers just like weren't in locations where there are a lot of people willing to be test subjects. So it is important to recruit people. It's a hard thing to do.
That's a really good point. All
I
right.
kind of want to do like the swap thing now. For like the Be the Match like campaign. It's like finding cell donors for people, and you can like donate some of your like bone marrow cells for people who have like is it lymphoma? It's like something.
Leukemia and maybe lymphoma.
Yeah.
All right, so we just listened to Sally and her mom have a discussion, just giving the, I guess, overview of what we're going to be talking about more. And so this next group of questions that we had for her was more about the specifics of the review process, what it's like in the actual clinical phase trials. And she addresses a big question that I think a lot of people had about the vaccine, which was the speed and the time it took and how you can balance speed and quality. So she's going to get into that. So keep on listening.
So you talked a lot about how the companies go through the different clinical phases for releasing this vaccine. But what was the review process like as people who aren't working in the company but are working on the safety of the vaccine?
I want to describe it in this way. So safety of the vaccine is the most important thing to the US public, because if you understand that in the US, actually, there is a group of people, they are not really like the idea of vaccination. So we want to make sure that all vaccines that is available to the US public have to be safe. Otherwise, we are doing something even destroying the credits of the vaccine, right? We don't want that. We want people to really trust our vaccines and also to vaccinate. So everybody will have that immune response, create a herd immunity, then it really protects the whole community. So for this SARS-CoV-2 vaccines, I would like to explain a little bit regarding to the licensing process. Basically, if you know that right now the two available vaccines in the market, they are not being licensed. So they are only called EUA. We call EUA. That means Emergency Use Authorization. So it is a little bit different from the traditional licensing process. So, but I'm not saying that it is not safe or it is not adequately being reviewed, but the process is a little bit different. Normally, we have to do some kind of like a risk versus benefit approach in this pandemic situation. So you have to assess if you wait until to complete the traditional approval process, it may take longer time before people can vaccinate. And this, you have to make assessment if you want to wait longer or you want to vaccinate a little bit earlier, even though we have not finished the whole reviewing process. But we are pretty confident that all the information that we have right now is adequate enough to tell that based on the expertise in the regulatory agents, they carefully review all the data and assess that they are safe and also effective to be used. So I believe that the expertise under the regulatory agents, when they say that they have adequate data, I think even though the process has not been completely done for the approval, that will be adequate enough for the public to use it in order to control the pandemic. So that is the reason those two vaccines are under EUA and not really completely approved.
So I'm curious about how far into the clinical phase trials does the company have to be in order to start working with the reviewers on the review process, or do they submit all the information after they're done, or do you work together throughout the process?
That's a very good question. Basically, the whole process is very dynamic. So, for example, if a manufacturer have some ideas to develop a vaccines, so they will start with a pre-IND meeting. IND that stands for investigational new drug. In this situation, it's a new vaccines that they would like to develop for some type of infectious disease. So they will start with a pre-IND meeting, and then they will consult with the regulatory agents what kind of information they are required in order to submit a file for IND. That means a new vaccines. So through this pre-IND meeting, they will have some knowledge about what kind of information regarding to the manufacturing process, regarding to the product data on the vaccines, regarding to the animal data that they need to support for the phase 1 study. For example, they need to do a toxicity studies in the animal to make sure that it is not toxic in animal. And okay, then they get all, and also they may ask their clinical protocol design, how they would like us to provide them advice on the design on the clinical protocol. So after the pre-IND meeting, normally the manufacturer will draft a submissions for the IND. So the IND will give more detailed information regarding to their process and also the animal study that they have performed with data. And also the phase 1 clinical protocol that they already drafted, and they will submit it to us, and then we will review. The regulatory agent will review it and decided whether the information in that IND will be adequate to start their phase 1 studies, and then after that they will go for phase 2 and phase 3. But during the whole process, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, actually the regulatory reagent work cooperatively with the sponsor in their development stages. So they can have meeting with us, and also they can ask questions throughout their development process.
Well, it's very interesting. So it's because this review process for the COVID vaccine was much faster than usual. Usually vaccines take several years to be able to be out in the market. How did this review process balance speed and quality? And what was the most important thing to check for?
Yeah, you're correct. Normally the reviewing process for a new vaccine takes longer than this SARS-CoV-2 vaccines. But bear in mind, first of all, I want to emphasize that these two vaccines have not been fully approved first. And the second thing is, also remember this is a pandemic situation. We are talking about several thousands people are dying every single day, and the infectious new cases is increasing in a extraordinary rate. So that is the reason that we have to expedite the whole reviewing process. It doesn't mean that we are diminishing our reviewing quality. We are just doing extra work and putting extra time and resources in reviewing these two vaccine submissions, and try to obtain as much information as possible from the sponsor or manufacturer to assure that we have sufficient data to ensure that the vaccines are safe and effective. So I can tell you that it is a very difficult process and involve a lot of people in this reviewing process in order to speed up the whole review process and try to get these vaccines to be used under the EUA.
Okay, so now I have a question that a lot of people are curious about, and it's what is the difference between the two vaccines that are currently available in the US, so the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine?
If you understand that both vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, they are messenger RNA based vaccines. So they are very similar. They are both the mRNA encapsulated in the lipid nanoparticles. So for me, based on the scientific point of view, they are very similar, and I don't think that there's a much difference between these two vaccines.
So, what was the major scientific challenges to authorizing the vaccine for public use?
I think the scientific challenges, especially for this SARS-CoV-2, is because this is a novel approach. Um, we never have any licensed vaccines using this mRNA-based vaccine approach. So people may not have a lot of confidence because we don't have a lot of experience with this new approach. But we have to understand that actually mRNA-based approach making vaccines, even though have not been licensed, but there have been a lot of research doing this kind of mRNA-based vaccines going on for more than 10 years. So actually a lot of scientists have a lot of experience on those vaccines. And I believe for the challenges for vaccination is always the same. It's the education. You have to educate people, make them understand the mechanism of these vaccines, and also discuss with them if they have safety concerns. You have to explain to them what kind of safety concern they have and try to use a scientific base knowledge to explain to them why those concerns may not be an actual concern. Then I believe education is the major key for people to understand the safety of the vaccine.
Okay, so this long segment about the details of the review process may sound like a press statement, but that's only because my mom has been consulted by a lot of her friends about this. So she's probably pretty familiar with like giving advice or like giving more information about the details. But yeah, I thought it was so actually since I've been living at home in and out of the home throughout this whole like review process, my mom does share with us like what goes on. So I've heard of like EUA, IND, like those kind of terminology. But I was wondering for you guys who don't have a family member that's a vaccine reviewer, like what did you think about hearing the inside details of the review process?
I don't think she gave a lot of details. That's why
Mhm.
I was like reflecting on how it sounded like a press statement, because she's like,
Mhm.
safety is the utmost importance, just like reassuring the
Mhm.
public and being like, the regulatory agents have it under control. So just having that strong face to present the vaccine, she did a really like good job of doing that. So it sounds like she's very articulate on that. But the part that I was kind of scared it was the herd immunity part, because there's no mandate for people to get the vaccine. So looking at like some people's hesitations about it, I guess, are we ever going to reach herd immunity, or is this whole thing gonna like backfire or something?
Mhm. I think because of the pandemic situation, I feel like more people would be willing to get the vaccine. I mean, speaking from like influenza, I feel like most people don't even get the flu shot yearly. Linda. But even still, then we still have like good enough herd immunity. So I feel like because of this pandemic, people will be like, we'll have the extra push to go out and get vaccinated. But what do you think, Ming?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to go back to what you said earlier about how you're always in the house hearing this. And I think, I mean, I learned a lot just from this. Maybe I
Mhm.
don't like the news is so ongoing and overwhelming that you almost kind of like zone out, or at least I zone out when I hear news about the COVID vaccine. Like, I understand I'm going to get it when it becomes available, but like the details of it, I don't necessarily pay attention to. So, hearing this explained by your mom was really helpful. And yeah, I don't know. That's the whole reason we wanted her on, right? Was because maybe someone
Mm-hmm.
might not hear the details, but hearing it from Sally's mom might help be more helpful. Um, all these phrases were pretty new to me. I knew about the emergency use authorization, but and I kind of wish we had maybe recorded her interview like live so we could like respond and ask more questions. But I guess another question I had was like when it's maybe you know this, Sally, but when it's given the EUA and
Hmm.
she emphasized that it wasn't fully, licensed, like it's fully approved,
Yeah, it's not
will
approved.
it eventually become approved or this is just like the state that it will
Yeah,
exist
that
in
is the
forever?
goal. Yeah,
Okay.
that's still the goal of the vaccines, but because there's not enough data, I think they're still in like I would want to say phase four clinical studies because they're still waiting to get like all of the safety data to get full approval. So
Hmm.
actually at the end of the EUA, I think for both of the companies, because I listened to them because I was interested, um, they had like an advisory meeting before giving the EUA authorization for the vaccines. So at the end of the advisory meeting, all the committee members would they would request which additional sets of data that they wanted from the companies.
Mm.
So
Okay. Okay. So
yeah,
it's kind of like when Linda was talking about getting her journal reviewed and like people came back,
yeah,
they came back with a lot of edits or more questions. It's kind of like the same idea
hmm,
of they
yeah,
come in with a lot of information already, but there's just like additional information that they really want. And I know that like expectant or pregnant people was like something that was they want to see what happens or
yeah.
not too much research going into that.
Yeah,
So
but the thing is, for these studies, at least like the first few phases, they didn't include any pregnant women, or they didn't
mhm,
like once they found out that they were pregnant, they try to exclude them from the main cohort because they don't want to like potentially harm the babies, you know. But I
mhm,
think if people
Mm-hmm.
like pregnant women get vaccinated, like once they're available, then maybe they can start collecting data from them. And they
mhm,
also don't have much data on kids, which is why it's not like available for kids.
right. Well, I think again, what your mom was emphasizing about education, like that really, I mean, I understood that fully. And I think again, we have that privilege of having that background knowledge. So even when these phrases are new to me, the idea that maybe they're not fully, there's still more information that could be found out, but they were balancing the like it's super safe, but they were just putting more like resources into getting it done fast. Like to me, that doesn't scare me really because I don't know, like that has happened before, or like there's been other vaccines that, you know, there's been so much research on the back end and that we don't
Hmm.
hear about. Like for this one, there was 10 years, she said, of research that was going on mRNA that we don't necessarily know about because there hasn't been a licensed vaccine of it yet. But
Yeah.
to me, that's reassuring. But maybe to other people who don't, I don't know,
Maybe people who
I don't know,
don't know
don't pay
like
attention.
what
Yeah.
mRNA is. They're like,
Yeah. Maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
more
yeah.
questioning. But
I think a lot of people are like people who don't have a science background are worried that the like injecting the vaccine into you might like cause it to grow into coronavirus and like infect your
mhm,
body. But like because it's the mRNA, so I don't know if you guys know this, but the mRNA only encodes the spike protein on the virus. So it's like literally just like the outer like one protein on the outer surface of the virus, which is what will develop antibodies against to recognize this virus if we do get infected, so that if we do get exposed to COVID, it'll recognize that spike protein on the outside, and then we'll already have the antibodies. So there's no way for like a mRNA encoding just one spike protein will become a whole full-fledged virus. So there's
yeah.
no
Mm-hmm.
need for
Also,
concern there.
in some cases, like it might be better not to disclose all of this information, which kind of goes against the education thing. But if Sally's mom told me this thing was safe and like the regulatory agents told me this thing was safe, I feel like I don't really need to know about like the mRNA thing. You know how like in movies where there's like an alien invasion or whatever, no one's gonna tell the public because they don't want to cause like a mass panic or
Yeah.
something. So
True.
sometimes I feel like the more you reveal, the more people are like, it doesn't make sense, and they try to like be scientists themselves.
Yeah. Well, I think now that that might have been the case before, but I feel like now everyone are like, what do they call them? Like keyboard warriors, or like all the anti-vaxxers who are like typing away at on their blogs or tweeting about like the evils of vaccines. And I actually wrote my Linda knows this, but I wrote my public health
Your
like
capstone.
senior capstone paper on not this vaccine, but the HPV vaccine, and looking into like what prevents parents from approving it for their kids. And a lot of it had to do with like the doctor patient relationship. So if you have a strong relationship with your doctor and they take the time to explain it and fully address your concerns, then parents are way more likely to vaccinate their kids. But I guess in this case, we don't have that luxury of like sitting down with your doctor and like discussing the pros and cons of the COVID vaccine because we're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
all
guess
those
that's
things.
why Fauci and like all these other healthcare like big names are like all around YouTube doing interviews and stuff.
Yeah, you have to like reach the people where they
Yeah.
are, whether that be
Hmm.
social media or whatever, which I'm kind of like, I'm really into. And that's, if I were to go into grad school, that's what I go into. But yeah.
So now that we learned more about what the review process is like in detail, we asked Sally's mom some more general questions that the public may have that we sourced from our Instagram polls.
Do you know any people personally that are hesitant about the vaccine? And what would you say to them if you do know someone?
Yeah, actually, I do have couple friends that they have some questions or maybe minor concerns regarding to these new vaccines. One of my friends, she is a nursing mom, and she was worried about that. Oh, whether these new vaccines have any effects to the baby when she breastfed her baby. Then I told her that basically I will just let her know that she have to make her own assessment. But I can tell her all the facts regarding what I know about these vaccines. I told her that based on right now all the safety data, I don't think there is a very serious potential concerns regarding to these vaccines for even nursing mom. But I have to be honest with her is normally for this kind of data for nursing mom, we don't include nursing mom or pregnant woman in the clinical studies. So basically is you can only rely on the results from the clinical study. Sometimes during the clinical study, some of the women may get pregnant, but that is true, may not have a lot of information regarding to these new vaccines. But I told her that you have to, for me, if you are asking me these questions, I would just think that to get protection may outweigh the potential safety concern. And definitely, this is her decision. I told her that you have to make your own assessment and make a decision that you feel comfortable with.
Okay, so the last question that I have for you is, do you think COVID-19 will ever be eradicated? And what does the new UK variant mean for the future of this vaccine?
I think this is $1 million questions. No one can answer your questions because whether it will be irradiated, I don't know. Because virus, the characters of virus, they can mutate really fast. If you understand why we need to vaccinate influenza vaccines every single year, because it really mutated very fast. And for this SARS-CoV-2, I don't know. I really don't know. I hope this SARS-CoV-2 will behave like the one that happened in Hong Kong back in 1993. But I cannot answer these questions. Regarding to the UK variants, basically, I don't think we have a lot of data regarding whether the vaccines available right now, whether it will neutralize the UK variants or not, I am not sure that we have sufficient information to address these questions. But based on some of the very limited data that from the scientific journal, it shows that even right now, the antibodies that elicited by the current vaccines is able to neutralize the UK variants, which is a very promising news. At least if the UK variants or the variants from Brazil or from South Africa comes over to the US, at least I believe the current vaccines will have some protective action based on the very limited data that we have right now. So keep our finger crossed.
Well, I think you gave a lot of good answers. I hope our listeners gained a lot of new information from listening to your interview. And thank you for coming onto our podcast today.
Okay, I'm glad you invited me and hope you enjoy what I said.
Okay, so I think that was maybe the most, not important, but most interesting part of the interview with your mom, because those two questions are really on the minds of everyone, I think, or at least a concern for a lot of people. And when your mom said it's $1 million question, I like kind of chuckled, because that's true. Like, how is she supposed to know the answer to that? And I think everyone just wants, we have this like really big hope in the vaccine, but now we have the variants coming from different countries, and we're worried that our new hope is like diminishing, but there's nothing to guarantee it, just like we had no way of knowing about COVID in the first place. So I think your mom gave a really good answer for not knowing like kind of anything. We don't know the future, so I wish we did, but I'm still reassured about the vaccine.
Yeah. I feel like, so her answer for the first question about the breastfeeding, or like, I guess people who are just cautious or nervous about the vaccine, I think she gave a good answer. Like, if you look at the facts and like the safety data and just make your own assessment, like no one can force you to take the vaccine, but if you do your own assessment, then you'll likely be able to, I don't know, you'll make a decision that you can stand by.
Yeah. It feels like a lot of the problems are stemming from like the rollout of the vaccine and how it's like so haphazard rather than just the vaccine itself. Because you can see like sometimes there's inequities about who gets the vaccine and who doesn't. And I mean, not who doesn't get it yet, I guess. And there's nothing that these scientists or researchers can really do that much, especially in this country.
Yeah. I was having a discussion with some of my other friends about how frustrating the US can be, not just about like the vaccine, but about like literally anything that is like, we're called the United States. So we're separate, almost entities at this point. And it's so hard to have like a federal mandate or rule that like crosses all like 50 states. And so even when we have like a worldwide pandemic that thousands are people are dying from, it's like I don't know, the structure, I guess, of our country just is so bad at like letting us have a full coverage kind of rollout plan. And yeah, it's just so frustrating, but there's nothing.
Well, I think
like
each state has to make their own, right? Yeah. And I think for Maryland, I think most people in Maryland are getting the Moderna vaccine, because at least from what I've seen so far and like what I've been offered, it's mostly Moderna.
That's the second one, right?
Yes, the second one that got EUA.
Okay. Maybe we should have asked this also, but I know your mom only focused on the Pfizer vaccine, but I know there was that whole like, I don't know if it was a debacle, but the whole question about like I think the Pfizer one is the one that has to be like in negative something.
The
storage.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering
80.
how that has impacted the rollout as well.
Yeah. I guess for Pfizer, you can only ship it to specialized like places that have -80 freezers. But Moderna really thought it through when they came up with this vaccine. But they still have to have cold storage. Like it's not -80, but maybe minus 20. I don't know.
Yeah, that's also something that when you said that Moderna thought it through, that was something that I thought throughout this entire interview. Like, I don't know that obviously probably you, Sally, knew this, but I did not realize that maybe before this year, before the pandemic, that
Mhm.
vaccines were made by like companies.
Like companies?
What did you think they
That
were
sounds
made
really
by?
dumb, but I thought the government, I thought it was the FDA,
Like they ordered
Really?
them to make
the
vaccines?
yeah, I thought there was like one set kind of recipe, I guess, or like
Mm,
I guess I thought there was a lot more collaboration in the background going on than there really is, because I thought like,
mhm.
oh, once someone figures it out, then they'll pass it around, and maybe they do,
Yeah.
but the difference in those two vaccines, like the difference in storage
Yeah.
shows that like they're not the same at all, really.
Mhm. And even now, there's like
Mm.
other companies still trying to get their COVID
Right.
vaccines pro or EUA. So
Yeah.
it's
I
always a struggle, like a battle between the
I did
companies.
not realize it was so like commercialized, which
Hmm.
I mean that's a whole nother discussion about healthcare being commercialized. But
Well,
I did
I
not
think it's a
realize.
plus, at least in this case, because then you have someone to race against. Like you have to get it out as fast as you can, like doing the best job that you can.
Oh,
So it gives them.
capitalism.
I mean, in a way, it is working because if you have no competition, you can just take your time. Like people will still take your vaccine after however much time that you take to get it
That's
out.
true.
So,
There could be an argument for like
I guess the minus in
EUA.
general.
Hmm, but
Linda.
Oh, oh, I guess like a minus in general that I didn't know about was that like lesser known viruses like just won't get a vaccine probably. I mean, obviously this is like a special case. That's why everyone's trying to get it out fast. But yeah, like Ming said, I also didn't know that it was like when a manufacturer like has an idea to go make it, then that's how it gets started. Like they're not ordered to by who? By the government, I guess.
Yeah.
mm,
But that's just how science is. Like when I was doing high school research, I worked at FDA in a lab, but we were doing the human cytomegalovirus and like only like these very small amount of infants get this virus. So we had like no funding and like compared to other
Mm.
labs who are doing bigger viruses, it's just how academia works, I guess.
mm,
Sadly.
yeah. But hopefully now, after this whole pandemic and worldwide public health crisis, hopefully more money will be more research, more money and funding will be put into like preventative measures or doing more just like preventative public health research. I don't know.
Hmm.
I guess that's something that could possibly we could benefit from after this.
Yeah.
Alrighty, everyone, that concludes the end of this 46th episode. It was a really educational episode, and I personally enjoyed hearing the perspective of Sally's mom, someone who has all that experience to share with us. And I think we're pretty lucky to hear it from her. I guess we can just conclude by saying that we'll have the transcript up. So if you want to read through it and read what she was saying to further process it, if that'll help, like that'll be there, so you can always access that. But I think what Sally's mom said about how she talked to her friend, like if you know family members or if you yourself are unconvinced about this vaccine, then the only thing you can do is do more research, your own personal research, and then make that decision for yourself. So hopefully this episode might have helped you a little bit, and I hope you enjoyed.
Hmm. And as always, if you like this episode, make sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Moving Along Pod. And we'll also be uploading bonus content to our Medium blog, such as the transcript of Sally's mom's interview. So you can follow us there at movingalong.medium.com.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.